Welcome to another episode of Field of Dreams on Axe Television Network. This is where we talk football. My name is Steve David, and with me is a panel of experts on the topic. And let me take some time to introduce this panel. To my left, I've got Meili Atin Johnston, Galiento, Everett Gally Cummins. I've got Naradas Wilson, and I've got Selby Brown. Welcome to each and every one of you guys. Let me throw it out there. Let's talk about players of the past and present. And it's an open discussion. And I want to hear what you think about the players that came through this country and what you think about what they've done so far, or what they did in the past, and how did our football came. So let me throw it out there. Who wants to take the first shot at it?
Well, I'll be happy to, and thank you for being on the set, everyone. The players coming out of Trinidad have always been of world standard and world quality. And this dates back to the 30s, into the 50s, from which I was able to see as a young man, and going on to the 60s, the 70s, and the like. And I say that because we became an independent nation in 1962. Prior to that, a decade before, in 1953, we had already established a level of football in this country that allowed our national team to tour England. And during that tour in 1953, two outstanding forwards were offered professional contracts.
Who are those guys?
Those are Shea Seymour and Matthew Nunes.
Never heard of them. I heard of Shea, but not Matthew.
The other forwards on that team would be Len Legard, Putty Lewis, who you must have heard of,
Right.
and that era.
What about you, Gali? You heard of these guys?
I saw them as a child.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Now, from the 50s, we came into the 60s, and between 62 and 67, I should tell you the coach of that team was Geoff Chambers, who was also the coach of our team in 62.
Meili, you don't know what he's talking about.
He was in class at Queen's Royal College.
You don't know what he's talking about.
With Dr. Williams. So that's how old they are.
Tell me who was the goalkeeper of that team?
The goalkeeper of that team was Joey Gonzalez, goalkeeper and captain of the team.
He played for Casuals.
Joey was Shamrock and Belmont. Yes, I think it was. I'm not sure. But Joey Gonzalez was captain of that team.
You're talking about Port of Spain
Outstanding goalkeeper, national team. He was captain
of
the Port of Spain League. His understudy on that tour in 53 to England was Pat Gomez. Now, I'd say that to say that by 62 and independence, between 62 and 66, 67 in the Pan Am Games in America, we were already number one in the Caribbean, having played in that game. In that tournament, we defeated Argentina 1-0. We defeated Colombia. We defeated Mexico and the likes. Our forwards then were the second batch. Alvin Cornel, Andy Al-Young, and a host of others. So we went to the 74 World Cup.
Are you talking about 1965?
67 Pan American Games.
Okay, right.
Then we went to the 74 World Cup qualifiers. And we were number one in the CONCACAF. Except, you know, the history of that referee from Central America and the Canadian
right.
who
Steve
ruled
Steve David crying and all kind of
what
things.
What FIFA did not do was change the outcome of the game.
Right.
Having punished the officials, they did not change the outcome. But I say all that to say that the outstanding team and the team that was number one in the CONCACAF, the two best forwards, are right here in this room with us. Everett Cummings, and of course, our own Steve Davis.
Remind me to give him money for the shout.
No. So you had Warren Archibald and the like and so on, and a host of names that we won't go into at this time. Then we came to qualifiers for 78, 82, 86 and the like, and we were called, and those outstanding forwards came to the fore.
And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about players of the era. And let's start with the forwards. Let's go with the forwards, then we go to the midfield, we go to the defenders, and we go to the goalkeepers.
Good. Let's start with the young people.
So,
Good.
The present.
let's start. Let's give the young people a
Let's
chance.
go with the current.
Okay.
Well, for me, I would start off with my forward would be Conor Glenn. You know, I admire Conor Glenn not only because he came from Cookreed, from where I'm from.
Oh, that's enough reason.
But I like players I like heart and soul players, and I think when he came back to the national team as a foreign-based player, you know, he was one of the few players that actually played with his heart. Whether he got 45 minutes or 10 minutes, he gave it his all,
100.
That's
you know,
a fact.
compared to some. And, you know, he is a very dynamic player. You know, his speed, his ability to turn on a dime, his one-on-one ability as well, you know, it separated him from a lot. One of the main things that you know, kind of slowed him down was injuries, and I think that was one of the main reasons why he didn't maximize his true potential.
What did he give us that you think that make him one of the premier players?
For me, I
To
didn't
the
see a lot
era.
of Trinidadian forwards. All I know, I admire his play.
Okay.
He dominated in 2002, 2003 in the Pro League for San Juan Jabloteh.
He was a goal
which
scorer.
Right, he scored about 12 and 26 goals respectively.
Okay.
Also the
And
good
he
Central Northeast
definitely, you know, steered them to their two consecutive league championships. He scored a hat-trick in the CONCACAF championships. That is where he really gained his first professional contract in the MLS, you know. But for me, that is one of my favorite.
But merely, let me just ask you a
players.
question. While you're on Conor Glenn, which is no doubt a dynamic player, but do you know of a player called Denzel White from Cookreed?
I heard of him, but I've never seen him play.
Oh, you've never
I
seen
think
him play?
So I don't know.
He was a national player. He played more to the right wing. Very, very, very good player.
100%.
Good touch, 100%. And it's unfortunate how he passed away. He also had a brother called Eric White, who was also a very good player. He didn't reach as far as Denzel did, but I just said that because I know she's from the area, and Conor Glenn, she was talking about Conor Glenn. I think my recollection of Conor Glenn is when he was with the I think it was the under 17 team, and I went to do a talk with I think it was Jab Brown and somebody was the coach. And I had to go and do a little motivational talk for the team. They were staying at Bonaventure. They don't
Kenwin Cooper.
Right.
Japan Kenwin.
Japan Kenwin. And he reminded me of that because I did so much a motivational talk. But as we on forwards, I want to talk about a forward that I have a lot of respect for, and I played with, Mr. Steve David. Because I remember telling him and saying it quite publicly to my Trinidad fans and friends that Steve David would make a bad pass look good. And I was player of the tournament MVP in Haiti because of Steve David. Because every time I picked up the ball, there was Steve David on the move already. He knew exactly where I was going to put that ball. And what was amazing is that you mentioned Warren Archibald a while ago.
Yes.
And I was telling Steve that what made my position behind the two of them so effective is the fact that they were two quick players.
Yes.
So they both had speed. So when Archie went down the wing, Steve was always there. Steve was there already, and I was doing the cleaning up behind because of the fact that what Steve couldn't put away, they were knocked back for me. And my strength was that shot.
But
let me ask, yeah?
It made that easy for me only because I can look at you and know what you're thinking.
The chemistry was
So
there.
the chemistry was there.
there.
So it was
No,
very
no,
easy.
this is why bring me to this point, because I can't just look at football from a player's point of view, because I'm also a coach.
Yes,
Now,
synergies.
something about other players make other players good. Because sometimes people say, this guy is the best player. All he can do really is to dribble one or two players. And at the end of the day, he loses the ball. But Steve, I want to ask you a question. I know you played in the North American Soccer League when I was in Mexico, and I was proud to sort of pave the way. Because I know Archie Ball helped you a lot in Haiti when he was always talking to you. Because you were not a professional then. I think it's after Haiti is when you stand. Now, I just want to ask you something. In the national team in Haiti, when we were playing against Haiti, what is it about you that was like you could have scored any time in the game?
I felt that way. I felt like I was in a zone. But normally when I play and I enter the field, I'm like an actor that going to do his thing. So I go into my zone. And if I need to dribble a lot, I do that. If I need to pass a lot, if I need to run. But I was in that zone that when I go there, I felt like, of course, because of Archie and his mentorship, telling me about, you flesh and blood like the same, like everybody else. If I go down the line and knock the ball back, you can put it in the goal, make me feel invincible. So I felt that way. I felt nobody was a bit better than me. And that is why I get that.
This is why I always believe that you can't mention one player sometimes.
Yes. There are synergies,
That
are formed with the players. And with that comes a certain style of player. Fitness had a lot to do with that confidence when you get into the zone. Once you have the desired level of fitness, the stage is yours.
That's it.
Now, there's the players, the forward who I would mention as a young person now has to be Kevin Molino.
What is more of a midfielder, per se?
I think
He is a forward. He can come back, yes, as in the case of several others.
But he's
But-
playing midfield out
That's
there now.
that's
He
my
plays
player for
midfield
midfield.
out there.
Yeah.
But who says they are the good coaches? He is, and I repeat, a forward.
We had
Rather,
that same.
did you
We
think
had that
about
same situation.
And if that
Yes,
were
no.
done in the Trinidad team, and this is some
This what I'm
advice to the national coach today, Kevin Molino is a forward.
Okay.
Now, I say that to say there are certain forwards that fill the mold, and I'll go along from Molino. You have players like, you had the Ron Laforays, the Bert Neptunes, the fellas who could dribble, who could turn on a dime, and who could spank that ball, who fit in the same mold, going right back through the thread, and you will see them, we get back to the 60s, we go back,
Don't go further
and
back.
you see
Don't
that
go too far.
whole vein coming through, the same style.
Now, rather-
Several others.
no, for
Yeah,
me,
no,
I would, I try to do. I've heard of the set further back. I've done my research. I know of them, but I think where I would probably start, because I'm looking at this from an agent perspective, what I could have probably worked with, and I think for me, I would have gone with Leonson Lewis. Is a player that, his statistics speak for him themselves. On the national team, 36 games, and to have 22 goals, that is a feat that very few have ever accomplished.
Correct.
I think, is a player that today he still is in good shape. A lot of the guys, usually when they are that good, you usually find that they go into their 40s in good shape, 50s, 60s, because it shows that they were actually athletes and not just footballers. There are a lot of footballers, a lot of people can play football, but to take that time to continuously train, eat well, play football, I would go with Leonson. And I think what he did in Portugal, you hear some of these Portuguese speak, some of the smaller clubs, he really did stand out. His very few, some games, 17 games, and he could have 9 goals. And then I would probably even bring it. So just come with someone present, not because we have worked with him, but I align Willis Plaza with the same thing.
Plaza.
Because I believe Plaza is the off-the-ball runner. He works hard. Plaza scores when he wants, just as you were saying. He's a player who, he came into the season last year when I signed him, halfway through the season, and was in the top 3 scores in the league. Right now we have the leading scorer on 14, and Plaza is somewhere around 9, but he only started in January. So you're looking at a player who, even the national coach once told me, there was a time he was on the bench and he said, "Coach, I'm going to score 3. And the coach said, "You sure?" And he said, "Yeah." And he just went on the field and did what he had to do. So I think it's the same thing you're saying. That a striker is always that player who knows,
Give me the ball, I will win this match.
Result.
All right, hear what? We're going on a break now, and we'll be back to continue this conversation. Okay, welcome back to Fever Dreams. This is Axe Television Network. We continue on the conversation we were having about the strikers, the forwards. And Millie, you have one person that you didn't mention, all right? Not one person, but the women. The women.
Oh,
You need to
yeah.
talk about the
You know,
women.
this is a male-dominated set, so I think
Right.
I have to take over, right?
True.
No, but for me, Kenya Cordner, you know, and as you said, Coachman, that, you know, the chemistry, as you said with Steve,
yeah.
you know, she make my bad pass look good a lot of times, you know, she's very nippy. I remember Kenya being 15 and playing at under 19 with us, and we were losing by a lot against the US, and she was coming off the bench first time with the national team, and she intercepted a ball from half line and just dribbled through everyone and scored. You know, and this is against the United States of America, so she's a natural born goal scorer. And as small as she is, she's very athletic, you know, her ability to leap over, you know, she scored 3 goals in the CONCACAF with her head, and I mean, she's a fantastic, yeah, exactly.
This is the little one that plays up front.
Yeah,
Yes.
She actually comes from the wing, but she's really a forward.
One advice to her, let me call and listen. You need, for your pace, she has pace, but she puts it out all the time.
Right.
She has to
Control it.
Catch them on the back foot
No.
and shoot off.
fool them. Sometimes a ball is played and you go at half pace, giving the defender a chance to feel they can get it,
And then you go.
you go.
And
Change-
she has
so
the
she has
speed
to
for-
change
the
she has
speed.
the speed
Huh?
for that.
Change the
yeah.
speed.
Yes, and she has to be able to do that, but she's great. I like her.
Yeah, she's
You're right.
definitely-
You're absolutely
I mean,
right.
and some of the goals that she scored is definitely world-class goals at
Right.
any level, whether it be men or women, you know, so she's definitely...
You know, my player, or my 2 or 3 players as forwards, I would say I start by Bobby Sukram. I thought
Must score those people.
unbelievable, and I used to sit down with my little 3-pack of China behind the fence, looking at see them play, and Bobby was like, man, he was like a serpent. He just glides, eh? And then Ron Lafferay, and you guys mentioned Ron.
Oh,
When I
a
saw
beauty.
Ron, with the talent Ron had, I'm like, why is he not on the national team? And then they brought him on, but I found out Ron doesn't like to train very much. So I think that's was Ron's problem. But thing. And then Stern John, man, is the only guy I seen when Gali and when Gali had the team who I felt could have played with us,
Yeah.
because he did everything that we did. He understood that kind of the role that we
With
had.
either
So I
foot.
thought Stern was that kind of
I
player.
think there's also along
Those.
the lines of Cordner, you know, the people, St. John was very confident. He
Yeah.
scored he scored goals with any part of his body,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
he just got in and scored. And I think Cordner is probably along that lines. You know, sometimes you see some ball go into a certain position and you think, why would she even run in there? But she would. The ball will come from behind and she'll find a heel somewhere to get the ball in.
Right.
And I think that is always a striker needs to be confident, needs to be athletic, and he has to have a lot of courage to go into certain things. I believe that is 3 of the things that you look for in a striker.
Right.
Selby, a little chit chat with Steve. We were talking about Pat Small, and he was from the 1965, the first
Yes.
World Cup team,
Yes.
and he was up front with Bobby Sukram. And we know Bobby is a gem.
Yes.
But Pat Small was also a very good ball handler. But listen, Steve said that he found him to be too upright. What do you think about that?
Oh, Steve saw Pat when he was in the service,
Right.
coming out of the game.
Okay,
Advanced
okay.
age.
I played with him, so I have an idea.
Pat, in that 65 qualifiers for the 66
Yeah.
World Cup, would hit exactly like Stern John is the image of Platsfall in his time. Left, right, turn, and hit on a... So many forwards can't take the ball on the turn. Can't hit on the volley first time. Chest, and hit it first time, which were what we took as the given. You did not go, you did not leave practice or go onto the field of play without those basic skills. You, Everett, you, Steve, and there are certain forwards that fit in that same mold. Some names that we must call. On that same team was Adney Ali Young.
Yeah.
You have to call the names of Alvin
Cornel,
Cornel,
yeah.
You coming down the
Jeff
right
Jelino.
side.
Jeff Jelino.
On the winger, the left wingers
Well,
coming in, and the right wingers.
He's
Edgar
calling the
Brown
team,
and
he's
so on.
calling-
You have
calling
a
left
host of
wingers,
names
make
coming
sure
in.
you say Warren Archibald.
Yeah,
we
well,
said
no, we
Warren
don't talk
Archibald.
about
We spoke
he's on
about
top of the
Warren
list.
first.
Warren Archibald.
We
He's
call
on top
Warren
of the list.
first.
Warren is
Man,
on top
go
of
on,
the list.
Mr. Lagado.
Listen, Narada, let me tell you something.
That was his
What I
fault.
did in 1989, and people wanted to know where that quick turnaround of the team came from. We produced people in these players. Leonson Lewis. I thought about Warren Archibald when I started working on him. When I was working on Kerry Jameson, I was thinking about Baby Headley's organization in the midfield
We'll come to that
and
one.
my shooting power.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So I'm just saying that you could reproduce people, but I couldn't reproduce this general.
Steve.
Steve, no.
So then if we had to pick 2 forwards for a 11 that we could all agree on to make that starting 11, who would be the 2 we could agree on?
What an all Trinidad
An
team.
all Trinidad
From
team.
over the eras.
Over the eras,
Over the years,
I will call Steve David. I must call Matthew Nunes. I must call.
2, please. Thank you.
All right, I will stay with the
only two.
I will stay with the 2. But I've left out Warren Archibald, and that's a different.
No,
thing.
I think
Bobby Sukram.
I think we could probably
we could
say-
go on all day with forwards and
Yes.
strikers.
They have me down
that
as midfielder,
represented
so-
our-
Yeah,
That's what
so-
I was
so-
saying. Yeah. I
this
think
what they-
probably
so-
Warren might be on everyone's list.
know, just
everyone's list.
And
I think that's tough. I could not pick 2 forwards
It's
to
tough.
be on an all Trinidad team.
No,
I like too many of those
this is
guys.
why
Yes.
this is why I
So-
refuse to even participate in that kind of
Right.
conversation.
So, so we could move to the midfielders.
okay. Based on and this is my 2 that I would probably choose with the era pass, not because they're here, but I think Gally Cummings. I believe that is how I had him down as a midfielder. I believe going to Mexico, confronting certain things, even in the US and stuff. I think because of the time it is not as we forget it a lot. But me being an agent, I would have loved to have a Gally Cummings today. Because we see in the Liga MX doing extremely well right now. We've seen Ronaldinho, the likes of some top players going to Mexico. If I could have worked with that, I think financially it would have been very rewarding at the point in time.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. Because if you look at the Cummings family and Everett Cummings here, he is not the best Cummings footballer produced in this country. And Everett will tell you that. He would agree with me. His elder brother, Philbert Cummings, was the player.
Well,
And you don't want to see Philbert. And see him turning and twisting and spanking that ball.
I beg to disagree
Never
because
played for a national
because I
team.
reached further than he did.
Yes, never played for a national
I
team.
think that
No,
is
no,
the-
never played for a national
You understand
team.
this,
But there are
Steve?
so
Yeah.
many other forwards that we have seen in this country.
I beg to differ because I played with Gally and I don't see anything better than Gally.
Because you
in
didn't
this
see
country.
Philbert.
But I would say Mr. Cummings, and I would probably go to Arnold Duarca. I know he's had a history that hasn't, propelled him the way he should have. But I think that is where an agent or an agency comes in. And he had the correct guidance. And, certain things was in place. I believe Duarca, he was that player that was confident to do what he wanted and get forward. A lot of our midfielders today are going by the book.
Yeah.
So you find we're not outstanding anymore.
Well, what about
I believe that would be my 2. I know the latter piece, they stand out and stuff, but I believe if I had to go off, I would go Gally Cummings and Arnold Duarca.
We also have Leroy.
exactly?
Well,
what
we've
about
been blessed
Leroy
with
Dillon?
midfielders.
We've been blessed. We
I
have Leroy
cannot
De
reach
Leon.
by Arnold Duarca
And-
if I didn't reach by Leroy De Leon.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
If I did not reach by the likes of, who is here and I spoke with him this morning? Bertram Grell. That's a name you won't know.
Looking at the back
Bertram.
four.
And a host of other, you had Sedley Joseph in the 60s. You had the General Carlton Franco.
You had Eddie Allion.
The Jalma Santos.
Selby,
we
you're
would call
going
it.
too
Yeah,
far
we-
back.
we-
You got
we-
Bailey
we-
on this
we-
week.
coming
Bailey
forward.
coming
We had
in.
Russell Latapy.
Yeah.
Russell in the mold of Everett.
Right.
But
He had to get a better shot.
I know, but listen, before Mealy takes over, let me explain some about Russell. I'm not taking away anything from his ability. He's extraordinary. We know that. And Trinidad and Tobago, the world loves him.
Yes.
I was very upset when I saw him not play or give him his due in the World Cup 2006.
Correct.
Because I think if I was his coach at the time and had done something like that, Trinidad and Tobago would have never forgiven me.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
And this is the luck with foreigners when they come here. We put up with all sorts of things, even keeping our best player away from our national team. But what I'd like to say, in 1989, Russell Latapy had full authority to attack at full force. But what I had to do is to get somebody to clean up behind him. And who could also finish in that of Hudson Charles. And at the same time, Hudson Charles, while he was supporting Latapy's movement, we had Kerry Jameson covering the two of them. But as I said, we used diagonal lines. Because as I mentioned before, each player is connected to each other with an invisible line.
Right.
And Latapy was kind of played his role and do what he wanted because the system was in place to create that. Really, the floor is yours.
For me, I would say I would consider Kevin Molino as a midfielder. I mean,
Okay.
He just have this impeccable vision. His first touch is like no other, you know, and he bring a different excitement to the game, and his personality, you know, adds to his game as well. You know, even though people may consider the USL as a so-called bush league, you know, goal scoring is an art, and you know, he's done that. In 2012, he was Player of the Year. In 2014, he was Player of the Year. He set the record for the most goals scored in a season. 20 goals, as well as the most points. You know how the US like the stats with 49 points, and I think Kevin Molino, he scored what, 20 goals for the. 20 goals for Trinidad and Tobago in like 20-something games or 30-something games.
Molino now is in the MLS
Exactly.
with the Orlando team.
Right.
And him and Kaka was in the tube
No,
last
he's
week.
definitely going to be something special.
You know, just to add, I played against him when I went Trinity. They went Mokarapo, and you know him. I think Atula Guerra, Highland was that midfielder.
Right, yeah,
I could be honest, you know,
No, they
it
were the
instilled a
best at
certain
that time,
fear in us. You know,
Yeah.
you knew you were going and you were probably
Yeah.
going to get 13 goals or something. So I
And
think
even
Molino
you
is
mentioned Atula Guerra, you know, those players are special players that could actually, you know, take Trinidad and Tobago football to the moon and back. But if they have a different mentality, they would make that happen.
Here my midfield. My midfield is Otis Whitley.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Lord.
yes. Oh, yes.
I met Otis one time.
Oh,
in
yes.
Charlotte, and I said to him, come. Why are you not serious about the game?
that is-
Because Otis Whitley was, in 2006, he was the player.
Well, even in 2005, leading up to the qualifier,
for
he
the
was
league,
instrumental in the 2 goals that Stern John scored.
Right.
You know,
There
so
was a young man who came from Tobago at the same time with Dwight.
Hutchinson. Calvin Hutchinson.
midfield.
He was on the
Deputy.
the team I coach. Yeah.
Yes. Talent.
A lot of
Midfielder.
talent. A lot of talent.
Vision.
A lot of talent. A lot of
Peripheral
talent.
vision. And could finish.
And could finish.
He is out of football now. And sadly, while we talk about all these forwards and midfielders, I want to tell you, if Edison Arantes do Nascimento, the Pele, was born here in Port of Spain, with the same ability, the world would not have known a Pele.
That's true.
Fair enough.
Because
Of-
we don't push our players.
We don't work with what we have, which is the talent at world level. And you stop playing.
I played with Team America in '76, right? And Pele come on the bus and you're sitting. We were going to play Italy, and he sit next to me and we talking. And then he said, "Steve, if you were Brazilian, you would be on the Brazil team."
yeah.
Of course.
That was the best compliment anybody ever gave me.
Whoa.
Yeah?
Steve, I had the same
Yeah.
compliment in Mexico
Yeah.
from a Brazilian on my team.
Right.
Said that but something about Trinidad and Tobago, I don't know. We frighten people off.
I'll go better to tell you this one. The first Trinidadian to play in a World Cup is young Randy Samuel from Point
Canada.
Cotta. He represented Canada,
right.
in the 1986 World Cup in
yeah.
Mexico. Randy left here at age 7. And for his parents, I have to say, thank God. Had he stayed in Trinidad,
We got to go.
and there you go. And the point I'm making is, in this country, there are those who have played at the national level, those who have come out of the game, who were world level players. That's how much we have had in this country in
All right,
translation.
my turn. We have to take a break at this point. We will come back and talk about midfielders or defenders. Let's take a break and let's pay the bills. Don't touch the dial. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and let's continue this conversation that we're having with the players.
Yeah, I want to ask I want to ask Narada a question because as an agent, right? We talk a lot about the players' ability, how much they could turn on a dime, and how much bicycle kick Pele did, and what have you. But there's another area of development, and we need to look at it in Trinidad with our young players: the attitude of the player. What do you look for? Before you start, I just have about 3 different things I wrote down because I didn't want to forget to ask you. Right? They say that since talent is not the only thing, hard work. And a lot of people believe, because I was told by somebody in the Pro League, that Trinidad players don't like to work hard. That's why they brought in all those Brazilians and Jamaicans and what have you. Right? That's one. Yeah. The second one is how much of these guys that you're looking for commit themselves to the game 24/7. And the third one, do you think that they manage themselves properly on the field and off the field?
No, quickly, I think is even a problem that we had in the agency where I tell people I started off working in Brazil. I represented Cleberson, who played at Manchester United and stuff with the World Cup, the big dribbler or whatever. And I kept all my business in Brazil outside of Trinidad. But then in 2013, they told me, yeah, you're bringing in a whole set of foreigners, why not work with Trinidadians? So I did make the commitment in 2014. Right. But the Trinidad player doesn't see outside of Trinidad. Pele is a great player. Yeah. Garincha was as good. And in some cases in Brazil, they show it as he was even better. Why didn't he make it and why did Pele make it? Right. That answers your question number one. Yeah. That is, very good, the attitude. There are a lot of football players, but to be an athlete and be committed on something for a long term, not very few do it. Number two, we have the talent in Trinidad, but the players, they need to see it from a very young age, what it could take them to, opposed to keeping them away from it. A lot of these players at 6, 7 years old, they don't really know what the football could do. You know, we see up to a certain level and that's it. A lot of the past players are not allowed to influence them. You know, I tell people, Mr. Cummings, I was 12 when I joined a football coaching school where he even came and did some little in the river on the bank exercises, and we all heard about Gali. We at 10, 11, 12 were excited to hear about a player who played in Mexico and blah, blah, blah. A lot of the players have never met Dwight York, have never met Russell Latapy. But if these guys come back and say, hey, I came from this to that, the experience of having them next to you is what is necessary. We have a game coming up, Trinidad, to play, and we haven't seen any old footage of old games. In Brazil, if a game is coming up, they show every time Trinidad play Panama, they're going to show about 10 times all day for you to get believing that, hey, it is actually possible we could win and all of that. So I think our attitude only reaches up to a certain amount because we are limited in how much access we have to knowing where it could actually take us. To do something from today to tomorrow is very easy. To get someone to commit for a month or a year before they could achieve their goal is very hard for the Trinidad player. So I don't know, mainly, you know, I just want you to make sure you get your females in, but some of the female midfielders, you know.
Oh, well, I'll name one in particular, you know, Tasha St. Louis. I think, again, attitude. You just spoke of that. I think if she had the right mentality throughout her career, she probably would have been one of the best women players in the world. I truly believe that because she had this uncanny ability to take on, to pass, to finish like a guy. You know, and that came from her background with, you know, having Angus Eve and Kerry Batiste and they as their family. But, you know, she did us great, but I think she could have done herself much more justice than she's done now.
Just to jump quick, I'll probably agree because I had the opportunity when I brought down 2 Brazilians to Caledonia to actually see Tasha train. She was there training with Kali's team and I was shocked. At the point, I didn't know it was her. I knew the name. But listen, the girl touches, you know, the way she plays, she has a slow movement and she dribbles, and
That's
it's
style.
exactly like a guy would play. And, you know, just saying what you said, in Brazil, she would have done phenomenal.
You
know,
touched
for
on
that.
two things there in the player. One, the attitude, and that attitude is what is core for altitude.
Of course.
Two, the vision. Having that vision of where do you see yourself,
Yeah.
where do you put yourself, and whether you are prepared to do what is
necessary.
so sadly lacking in the Trinidad footballers fraternity, to do in knowledge, which you touched on, a history. And it is evident in the West Indies cricket as well. So when I put on this red, white, and black jersey and go on to the field of play, it is who I am, what I represent, the history, and when that, not even when the whistle blows, as we will all know, the night before is when you play the game in your bed.
Merely like she want to have
You
sex.
know,
Yes.
no, not really hard, but mind you, Tasha St. Louis was one of the first women to sign a professional contract in the States in 2004, 2002, actually, after the Gold Cup qualifiers. And she was, one of the, make the 11 the All-Star team.
All-Star.
And she was one of the first
Out
women
front.
to actually sign a professional contract with New Jersey Wildcats,
Yeah.
where she helped them to a championship as well. So it's just attitude, I believe.
Let me take a moment to let's flip and go on to defenders. The people who hate me the most. I tell you what, when I go onto the field and I always look at the people I'm coming up against, and I see these defenders warming up and they're jumping up and stuff like a peacock, and I'm like, I don't know what's your problem, but you about to have the worst night of your life.
Of course.
So now I'm going to ask you. So so let's talk about
Okay,
defenders,
Steve,
guys.
I want to start this.
Yeah.
1965 World Cup campaign. The back four, that was a 4-2-4 system.
Yeah.
The back four
Yeah.
was Doyle Griffith,
Delbert Chado.
Clem Clark, Tyrone de Laverstein, and Alwyn Ferguson.
Full V.
Well, they had other players too, but this is some of the names I can remember, right? In Haiti, 1973, was Rondon, Selwyn Moran, Selvin Figaro, and Russell Teixeira. They had beat Winston Phillips and all other people there, right? But in those days, we played with a flat back four, okay? So players had to move together, back together, whatever. Now football is different. You hear all kind of system, 1-5-95, and all this kind of stuff, because the quality you have. I, as a coach, I always believe that the players that we might say they were good in that era of 1965, they might not play in this era because the science has changed, right? And people spend a lot more time, coaches and technical staff, looking at the biomechanics of a player, the individuality of the player. Like that, a while ago, mainly talking about Molino. She said she would use him where? In the midfield. You would use him up front.
Forward.
Right? So it shows you the difference in the thought process in respect to players, right? But I'm going to call a name, and I want a discussion on that name. Tyrone de Laverstein. I always had problems going past him. The others, I had no problem with. The different eras. And something about him, I don't know. The fact is, he was quick. He could have turned and chased you. But and if he was coming up against a player like Steve, he would not be tight on Steve. He would back off and give himself an advantage, and always keep Steve in front of him. Right? Some players might have gone in there, and all Steve had to do is push that ball there, and he's gone. He and Archibald, right? So Steve, you never played with Tyrone. I had the opportunity of playing with him over the years because I always see myself as a connection to all the World Cup teams in a sense, right? Yes. But Steve, Selvin Figaro, kind of player, he would sit down here with you, we talk, we laugh, we have drinks together, but tomorrow he kick everything out of you on the football field. But he never meant it. But this is what he was. He was a hardcore defender.
yes.
Sellers was.
And he also had the ability to organize the game. And as I heard Stuart Child said, Sellers is like his mentor.
Yeah.
And he was with Phoenix Professional.
Well, and do you know when we played with Malvern, Sellers was a forward.
He was but not only that, when in primary school at Richmond Street Boys in Port of Spain, he was a goalkeeper.
You see?
And then he played a forward.
And then
Yeah, but when he gets serious, he was a
Yeah, when he
defender.
got
defender
serious,
was
right,
brilliant.
Very good
right,
one
right.
at it. too.
and so
Yeah.
there are certain defenders who stand out. You mentioned
Bertrand Grell, you said?
Bertram. You have
Selwyn
and
Moran,
we missed
Steve.
some names before, eh? But we have to go back through the eras. The 60s, that defense.
Right.
There's a fellow who played with Maple with Tyrone, Dick Rodriguez,
Yeah, Dick Rodriguez, right.
who would close there on you.
Too
Right.
far back, sadly.
Too far back, but
Too far
but
back,
Steve,
sadly.
Steve,
we're going into the 60s.
give us some names.
Give us some names.
Give us some
Benedict's-
names. Bring
that
us forward.
Benedict's
Bring us
team.
forward. Lawrence Rondon, Benedict's.
Lawrence
yeah, I
Rondon,
mean, we have-
Barney in the hole.
Russell T. Sherr.
T-shirt,
Yeah.
right?
This is
Link-
Russell
yeah,
T. Sherr.
yeah.
I thought it was an excellent.
I thought it was very-
defender.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Selwyn
Selwyn Moran.
Moran.
Selwyn.
Yeah.
Right.
Sellers
Sellers.
Figueroa.
Selwyn Figueroa. This is what I'm saying.
I mean, we had, but
we
that's
had
back
eight
then.
people.
What about as we come forward? What about in your guys
Okay, but no.
and come forward?
This is where the dynamics changed because I played what they call a 2-3-2-3.
Yes.
Two laid-back defenders, three across the front, a Bolt, a centre midfield, and Kerry Jameson, Brian Williams, Marvin Foston. And in front of Kerry, the attack was Russell Atby, the point of the attack, Hudson Charles in support of him, and then in front, Leonson Lewis to the left, Philbert
Right.
Jones,
Philbert, yeah.
and Dwight York,
Yeah, right.
who went on to do greater things. And some people believe that that he wasn't the kind of person who gave Trinidad all that they needed at the time. But at least he came back and he went, helped them to go to Germany. But I want to say one thing about him because we didn't mention him and he's a very, very good player. When I gave him the first break against Honduras in the Queen's Park Oval, 1988, he was 17 years old. And Mealy mentioned a while ago, she brought back that talk, turning on a dime. When he came onto the field, in the second half, nobody in the Queen's Park Oval sat down after that. This is when I know Trinidad football is on the rise. People was like ready to see. And I said, that was it. He just went from strength to strength. I was there when I spoke to Graham Taylor, when he went to Aston Villa, and then,
Well-
and I don't know if Mealy want to take me up on this, but I see her laughing next to me. I don't know.
Enjoying the talk because
Yeah, well,
you're
I
going way
think
back.
we need to look the players who change the dynamic to change a whole team.
Correct.
Sellers, when
Sellers,
Sellers
I
came,
would agree.
you mentioned before we had a national team while you guys were out playing professional.
Right.
When Sellers and you and Archie
Archie.
came, three of you guys did so much for our team on a different level. Sellers changed the whole practice, the thinking, the attitude, because he came, whether it's practice
Win or die.
okay, and
He
you
was
put
one
his
way
foot there,
or die.
he will take it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Win
he had
or die.
everybody get real serious. So
I
he
did
changed
not
the
come
whole
here to play.
Yeah.
I came to win.
Right.
And that is why Trinidad and Tobago, for that World Cup qualifier, 74 World Cup, were number one in the CONCACAF. That's why we were number one. That solid defense, and then the attack that scored more than 20 goals.
Let's talk about some defenders. I'm not a defender, sorry, goalkeepers, because we've left those out. And let's go into that. But before we go into that, the best header I saw is Ken Moran.
All right.
Period. Okay. And you have some others too, but okay,
Well,
I'll let you
thank you.
mention two of them.
No,
real
I just
quick.
want to say like you're forgetting that I scored a header against
Oh
Guatemala.
yeah.
All right.
You score a header
So
against
give me a little big up
Guatemala.
once in a while, eh?
Don't forget who went down the line and put it back for
Yeah.
you.
Okay. You see synergy again.
But just quickly on the headers, you
But-
have Ronnie Gray,
He had
Jeff
a lot of
Jelly,
good
no.
headers.
Jeff Jelino,
Yeah.
Sheldon Gomes, I want to put in there.
Leon Silvers is a good
Can
head.
I
Leon
interject?
Silva.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
We can,
female,
especially myself and Narada, like we can get to slow down the speed races. But
No.
for me,
Yeah.
Defenders.
in King we trust, Erin King, the first year she played for Trinidad and Tobago was an instant impact for us. She's savvy. She's probably, when you compare her to the defenders on the men team right now, she, in terms of composure, in terms of understanding the game, technically and tactically, so she's on par with any one of them. So I would say Erin King,
As a
a
A
defender.
defender, female.
And you
No,
did
no,
some
we-
good heading yourself.
Yeah.
no, we
You didn't call yourself, but I saw you coming up to it and climbing up there and finishing, eh?
All right.
Very
we
good,
past
yes.
defenders now. We into the goalkeeping,
Goalkeeping.
right? So
Yeah.
I go back.
let Narada
No,
start.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
for me, I've heard, I think I started with the era, probably like the Kelvin Barkley and, Lincoln Phillips, met him personally, good person to talk to,
Jamie.
and then coming down that line. But for me, I think what I would work with, I believe Shaka Hislop. Not only for the goalkeeping skill, but I think it would have been a player I would have worked with. I would give you all to go with the older set and probably the newer ones. But I think for my era, what he did or what he made a lot of goalkeepers believe they could do, I believe he set a trend. It's very few goalkeepers could say, went to university, stood out there, so he had his books in order. He also did what he had to do in England because he's a phenom there in some clubs, in some respects, in some communities. On the national team level, yes, there were others that, surpassed him in some, respects, but I do believe Shaka Hislop will always be a name that once we hear the name, a lot of us, a certain era usually just automatically gives him a certain respect.
Yeah.
So I would start there, and I will allow you all to go back to some of the older names.
Don't say
and stuff.
nothing, Selby. Don't say nothing, Gary. Let Millie take because you guys gonna finish it up.
Yeah, for
Go
me,
ahead.
you
Go ahead,
talk,
man.
talk and talk the most, right?
True. No, I will say knowledge than knowledge.
All right,
More
this
knowledge.
is,
Don't say
but,
nothing, Gary, and don't say nothing.
I would say Kamika Forbes. We've had a few good keepers come through our program, like Lisa Jo Ramkisoon and Nicole Mitchell, but Kamika is above, she athletic, she has a just natural ability. We didn't have a lot of goalkeeper coaches, so it's not until Kamika really went out to the United States where she developed into an all-round keeper. The only thing she has to improve on, like many of our past keepers, is distribution of the ball from goal kicks.
I think
Right.
the only I'll give Meili that is because a lot of female players, and it's something you learn in sports science, the ability to jump is not much there, right? Because of lower body, upper body strength and all of that. And a lot of the goals that are scored in women's league are usually on top
Right.
because they won't jump. Kamika is an exception because she actually could fly for the
Yeah.
ball. So I think you would give her that.
I've got 5 minutes to share between you guys, man. 5 minutes. You and
But
Gary.
I'm
No, I'll
glad to hear
leave
Navarro.
goalkeeping up to the rest of the
I'm
panel.
glad to hear Navarro start with Kelvin Barkley. We
Yeah.
played together at Malvern.
Okay.
But before Kelvin, and Kelvin was a hard worker, was Clive Burnett, who returned here for
I
Ghana.
know I play against Clive.
And before Clive, in that batch with Clive,
going
you
in the
had
wrong
the Pat
direction.
Gomez, you had
going in the
Jean Moutin. When we come forward, there is somebody who we should not leave out at
Who's
all.
that?
Earl Carter.
Okay.
And he is my goalkeeper of goalkeepers. There was John Granville, yes, but I'll still give Earl that edge.
And nobody
Yeah.
mentioned Maurice.
Michael Maurice.
Michael Maurice.
I'm going again. I want to go to Mervyn Joseph from
You're
South
going
as
back
well.
again.
Yes. That's the 60s. That's our era. That's when we played.
But he was
But-
good.
Yeah, excellent. We have always, and I want to make the point, we have always had good goalkeepers.
What about Gerald Figueras?
Figgy in goal and left-handed Hazley Crawford's brother,
Mervyn
saving for
Crawford.
South,
Mervyn
Mervyn
Crawford.
Crawford,
And Battle George. And
battle in goal for
and
the
Rock.
yeah.
Tommy Rock.
Tommy Rock of the East.
Yes. And
We have always had good goalkeepers, but there's a problem. If your goalkeeper is your star, you're not playing too well.
right.
You must if at the end of a match,
The
the
goalkeeper is
person
MVP.
who was outstanding was your goalkeeper,
Yeah.
then you didn't have quite a good game.
Personally, well,
Gally, I never seen you so quiet for so long.
No,
What do you
you
think
see,
about goalkeeper?
no,
Mention one.
Pat Batiste, Pat Gomez,
Selby, Gally.
Gally.
You see, I want to give Narada and Meli a chance.
No, but you are a goal
Right.
scorer. You two should be able to say which goalkeeper you liked because it had to be somebody that stopped
I-
most of the
Let me give
goals.
you a story. I don't have no respect for goalkeepers because I just don't.
Walk, you don't exist.
I tell you what, they don't exist to me. I remember playing for LA and we playing against Fort Lauderdale and with the English goalkeeper Gordon Banks.
Banks.
And a reporter asked me a dumb question. You think you can score on Gordon Banks? And I said, what? Does a dog bark? Does a pig if I could score on Gordon Banks? So I said, look, let me tell you something. Gordon Banks is a great goalkeeper, but he had an accident. He lost an eye. I say, and it turned out the next day on the newspaper, I said Gordon Banks have one eye, and I would score on him, and I make a big deal out of it. But never had respect for goalkeepers at all. Having said that, we got 2 minutes to wrap this up. You guys, I'll give you guys a chance real quick to say anything you have to say before we close up the show. I'll start with, not with Gary, but Millie. That didn't take too long. 2 minutes.
For me, I just think when looking back, it breaks my heart to see a lot of our most talented players, who we thought would have took us to the moon, took Trinidad and Tobago's football to the moon and back, sell themselves short and just settle for mediocrity. So to our future stars, do know that the mind is one of the most powerful tools. Use it positively and, never settle for mediocrity.
I think along the same lines, I think the era that came before, unfortunately, the money wasn't there at the point in time. Now we're seeing guys with a lot of money, or a lot of money is in the sport, but the focus isn't there and the determination isn't there as the era before. So we have to find a way not to get one or the other, but actually have the two. The money's there now, so hey, get the right attitude and go forward.
We have always had world-level players in this country. We have to encourage the youngsters to apply themselves and make the sky their limit. What has always been the problem in our country's football has been the administration. But that does not affect you, the player, doing your homework and preparing yourself for the world stage.
Kelly.
Steve, I just want to repeat what you said some years ago. When I asked you, which team in the world could beat the team with you and Pele and Beckenbauer, the all-stars team in the States, and you said the 1973 Trinidad and Tobago team.
Right. And
that's it.
okay, you guys out there, if you have comments, you can go to Facebook and drop us a line and let us know what you thought and what you'd like us to talk about if you want. And we also, you can go to fieldofdreamstt@gmail.com. And before I go, next week, our next episode, which is a week from, 2 weeks from now, because next week we're going to repeat this same show for the ones who didn't get to see it. We're going to repeat it in a week, and then we're going to get a brand new show in the following week. And then that week we're going to talk about the four World Cup teams that made an impact, and that's the 74 World Cup team, the 90 World Cup, and the 2006 World Cup team, and the women's team. All right, so that's our next discussion 2 weeks from this week. Thank you guys for tuning us in. Hopefully we will see you again in 2 weeks. Again, thank you. And I want to thank the panel for giving us some expert advice or discussions on football, on Axe Television Network. Wow.
Thank you.